Hello and welcome to the Wolves Report. I'm Ryan Leister and thank you for joining us for episode 100. Tonight we'll analyse the match and player performance from Wolves' 2-0 defeat at Anfield. We'll give you our end of season review and we'll talk about Jeff's VAR letter as well as taking your questions. Nocki, delighted to welcome back for the last game of the season as our ever-present club captain, and delighted to the welcome return of sports commentator, football commentator and presenter Jacqui Oatley with the only ever correct exact prediction when she predicted a penalty. Ruben Neves 1-0. I can't remember the game though, but still 100% record. Big night ahead. As always, the show is recorded and beamed out live, YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and then recorded onto Spotify. Nocki, we'll only do a brief overview because I want to talk about the season and try and pull some positives and look forward. But I'd love your take on Liverpool 2, Wolverhampton Wanderers 0.
I think the performance was what I expected. The result was probably what I expected, but I thought there'd maybe be a few more goals in it. I thought it was a relatively comfortable game for Liverpool. I don't think they ever really got out of second gear, but when as soon as you get down to 10 men, that's likely to happen against a good side. They started on the front foot. We struggled to get out. We did have a couple of half chances. Hwang's had a half chance, which I don't think was ever really going to go in. But I thought we didn't give up after the red card. We didn't give up after the goals, and they kept working. But I always felt that we were at arm's length. I always felt they were relatively controlled, and it felt a little bit like a testimonial. It felt like we were just kind of playing the game out. They were comfortable not to slap us, and we were comfortable not to get slapped, I think. So it was okay. We didn't create a great deal. They maybe could have had a couple more goals, but it is what it is. I think it went the way that we thought it probably would.
Yeah, the main talking point of the game, Jacqui, is probably the red card. It's in some games you see them, but I think if it goes to VAR, we all know it's a red. And I don't think it's malicious from Nelson. I just think it's a little bit clumsy.
Yeah, it's just such a shame, isn't it, first of all, because until then, Wolves were absolutely going toe-to-toe with them. I thought it was, really solid performance until then. And as soon as that happened, as soon as the little box came up, you just kind of think, there we go. And then saw it again, and I thought, well, they are going to send him off, because once you've analysed it in that detail, you are going to send him off when you see the ankle connection, and, they're going to put it at the point of contact, and it looked bad. And once he's called over, you see him trotting over. Yeah, so the number of times pre-VAR that wouldn't have been a red, but I think once you're actually slow-moing it, looking at all the angles, I don't think they're going to say it's not. So I can see why it was given. I thought it was a shame because it just would have been nice to see. I remember going to Man City a few years ago when you're thinking, okay, it's unlikely, but you never know. Willy Bolly gets sent off early on for a challenge on the halfway line, and you're left with that feeling of, well, what if? And okay, you can absolutely say that Liverpool would still have beaten Wolves. Fine, say that. But you just don't actually know, do you? Because there are so many variables. There are fine margins. There are goals that go off players' backsides. Pedro Neto maybe coming on with Wolves a goal up or something, or 0-0. You just don't know. So it's a shame, 2-0 with 10 players. Absolutely zero disgrace whatsoever. And it was just a shame, was my overriding thought.
Yeah, Nocki, we were all thinking at half-time, this could go really, really wrong. But as Jacqui mentioned, credit to the team. They didn't stop. They've never really stopped under Gary O'Neill. And since he's got to grips with the squad, no one's ever really give Wolves a slapping. When you thought Klopp's last game, this could go really wrong.
Yeah, look, you're up against it, aren't you? And it could have gone badly wrong. We could have been completely overawed in the second half, but we weren't. They stuck with it. They kept working. They kept trying to create opportunities. But predominantly, you're playing against a team who were in the title race up to a couple of weeks ago. So they're a very good team, and they're a lot better than us. But just going back to the red card, I think he's within his rights to send him off, but I don't think he needed to send him off. I think my frustration with it was I don't think it's a clear and obvious error. I think that if you were to see that decision 100 times, 50 times, it's going to be a booking. I don't think it's clear and obvious that he's got that wrong. And also, I've got a real issue with them going over to the monitor and then seeing instantly a slow motion replay, because I think any incident, when you slow it down, you can find whatever decision you want out of it. And did it change the game? I'm kind of with Jacqui. We probably would have lost regardless, but it's last game of the season. We've lost Nelson now for 3 games. Does he need to make that decision in that kind of game? I don't think he does. So it kind of spoilt the game for us. It didn't help with kind of the conspiracy theories around his VAR against us, because maybe it is, maybe it isn't in terms of being a regular. So he just didn't. I don't feel like he needed to send him off, and that was kind of the main disappointment for me. But in terms of performance, I'm not too. I'm not going to be critical of the players. I think they were up against a team who were full of top class players. The only thing I'd be disappointed with are the 2 goals we conceded. I think especially the second goal, we've left Gakpo, he's a free header, and then you've left one of the most dangerous players to ever play in the Premier League completely free, with no one within 5 yards of him, and you're going to get punished if you do that. And it was similar for the first goal as well. They were both really poor goals to concede, and that's been a little bit of a pattern. You've let Alexis McAllister, who's probably 5'10", walk in the middle of your 2 6-foot+ defenders and nod in. So both the goals were really cheap and really poor. But in terms of the overall performance, I think we did okay.
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to dwell on Klopp's finale at Anfield too much, Jacqui, because I think we all know what the outcome was going to be. But as you say, we never get to find out. And I don't think Wolves did too badly. Even with the ball in the second half, I actually thought they did okay, considering you're a man down playing a team that's desperately playing for their coach and on his farewell game. So I'm not. I can't say I really dislike losing, but I'm not disappointed by the performance.
No, and I'm actually, yeah, we'll need results. We want results, but I'm very much a kind of, what's the direction in which you're travelling? Where are you going under this manager? How do you feel about your team at the moment, taking away the result? And I think looking at Wolves under Gary O'Neill, whilst Liverpool are a team in their manager's image, I think Wolves are a team in their manager's image, but not necessarily with their manager's players. He got the job 5 days before the start of the season when he was by a pool in Portugal. And then suddenly he's at Old Trafford masterminding a fantastic performance, an excellent performance, which, as we know, should have yielded a penalty at the end, no question. So I thought it was a very Wolves under Gary O'Neill performance. How many times in the years have we seen Wolves capitulate? I'd say quite a lot in terms of the mood, the head going down, all the rest of it. I think the defending was really poor. I think there could have been 3 or 4 goals. I thought Santi Bueno, I'm sure we'll come on to summer transfers and all the rest of it. I'm not a fan at all. I think Wolves got to do a lot of work defensively in the summer. But in terms of the way they compete, the way they believe, the way they like to play against the top teams and don't go into games like that thinking they're beaten before they go out, that's huge, because a lot of clubs, I think, maybe in the lower half of the table, would be thinking they're on a hiding to nothing. I don't think Wolves have got those kind of players like Cunha, Wang. They compete. Joao Gomez, Lamina type players, they compete all the time. And when I say that's good enough for me, sounds defeatist. It's not, but obviously with 10 men, yeah, it is competing and trying to get back into the game. But those errors in isolation were shocking. And there was a third one and a fourth one as well. Really bad defending, which needs to be addressed.
Well, whilst we're on the defensive side of things, then still sort of summarising and analysing the game, this is something that, Nock, we've talked about it for a little while. There's the defenders, quite a lot of them sort of balance off against each other. But I just think overall as a group, I just think we're a little bit nice. Max Kilman is a monster of human, 6'4", 6'5". He's a big guy. I know you can't make aggressive, but I just think as a defence, the midfield not so much now, because that's definitely toughened up, and that's why we're always in games. But I just think as a defence as a whole, I just think we're a little bit nice.
We are, and I like Max, but I feel I'm not sure about him with the armband. I don't think he's the sort of personality that you want captain your club at this level. Santi Bueno, I was kind of banging the drum for him to come into the team a few months ago, but I just seen a few red flags now. We look like we switch off. We look like we switch off on a regular basis, and Totti seems to drift out wide, and there just looks like there's a mistake in that back line, and we're conceding the same goals all the time. And I think we spoke about this last week with, the goal against Man United with Kobe Mainoo, when he's finished it from that position. The Coventry goal comes from the same position. Elise comes from the same position. We're repeating the same mistakes continuously, and I just feel that defensively we just look very vulnerable. I agree. I think there's a massive rebuild, and I think we start there. I think realistically anyone in that back line should be up for sale, and anything we can get sort of north of 40 for Max, I'd be kind of really tempted to take it, because I think that we need a more physical presence. We need leaders in that area, and we just need to be a little bit more dominant, and we feel soft. We feel like we've got a soft underbelly to the team at the moment.
And Jacqui, we were a little bit worried about his form around Christmas, but it's clear, light and day, how important that Craig Dawson is to this team.
Yes, because he's a leader in the way that he plays. He's a monster of a player, and he can ping a pass, by the way, as well. I mean, people might think of him as being a bit old school, but he's absolutely got a cross-field switch in him. Yeah, absolutely. I'm a big fan of his, and I just don't think there's any leadership in that back line. Max Kilman understands him being given the captain's armband, and I go back to the fact that Gary O'Neill had no pre-season whatsoever, no say on which players were to come in as such, given the time frame. Then he goes and loses Mateus Nunes, who is frankly better off at Man City. What a great sale that was. But that wasn't the plan. He wasn't supposed to lose him as well as the players that have gone before. And I just think defensively, I like Totti, but as a starting every week kind of centre-half, not so sure. It just needs a monster of a character to lead that back line. And when I say monster of a character, I mean someone who's mentally strong, but also can play football. And I think, I'm not saying they're mentally weak, by the way, but you know what I mean by that. Somebody who leads. And I think it's no secret. I think probably most of us would agree that Max Kilman was better alongside Connor Cody, so much better alongside Craig Dawson. Needs somebody else there to do the leading, the organising, the cajoling. Aït-Nouri's still only very young, remember, and has played in a number of positions. I just think having that kind of leadership, and I think Santi Bueno, sorry to single him out, but I don't think he's a Premier League player. I don't think he's physical enough. I don't think he's strong enough. He cost only £8.5 million from Girona, but it's a 5-year contract. I think if Wolves can do some wheeling and dealing and they can find a buyer for Santi Bueno. I know he's barely been there a year. You could say he needs time to settle in, okay, but I'm just not seeing him as a Wolves Premier League defender. I think somewhere Spain, Italy, it might be better suited to him. Don't see him in the Premier League, but it's not just physical. Positionally at Anfield, he was all over the place, and he could have been at fault for a third goal and a fourth goal. And I think with Max Kilman alongside him, Kilman's not feeling that assured either. So yeah, I think it's a big rebuild. I think it'd be really interesting to see, with Gary O'Neill having such a good relationship and rapport with Matt Hobbs, which is really, really healthy, really, really healthy. I think as long as they get the green light to bring in the players that they want. And also, I can actually see Jose Sarr moving on, just a personal opinion, but yeah. I don't think he's as good with his feet as Gary O'Neill would want him to play. Imagine, we know now how Gary O'Neill wants to play, right? We've got an idea. Proper football is a simple way of putting it. Total football, playing out from the back. He needs to have different options. He needs to have players who can play different options. He wants to change the game within a game sometimes. And I think if he had a goalkeeper who was better with his feet, as modern day goalkeepers are, I think that would really help Wolves overall and help Gary O'Neill do what he wants to do. And I think he could get a decent fee for him. He's a good goalkeeper, but 4 clean sheets in 35 games this season, after I think it was 11 last season. There's always more to it than just the goalkeeper, of course, behind clean sheet stats. But yeah, that's why I'm saying I think a big rebuild, honestly. And there's no guarantee that Semedo will stay either, and he's going to miss the first 3 games.
Because I think this season we've scored as many goals, if not more goals, than we have there in the Premier League, I think, since we've been back here. But is that the trade-off, though, that we've had to take in terms of being more defensively vulnerable? Because Wolves were low scorers in the bottom 3 or 4 for the last few years, and that was going to cost us. So although it's been a bit of a gamble, it seems to have paid off, because we're sort of sitting comfortably in the middle third.
Yeah,
not with the goals we can see.
5 more points gained, 19 more goals scored than last season. But I don't think there needs to be a trade-off. I just think we need better. Try not to. better defenders, but better suited to the team. They're obviously good players, but I just think I'd like to see some transferring in the defence, let's say.
Okay.
I think when you talk about the trade-off there, the trade-off I'd expect is for us to get caught more on the break. But when you look at the goals that we concede in basic routine goals. So I don't think the trade-off is that we're attacking more so we're conceding more. I just think we're making basic errors. And I think Jacqui touched on a really good point there around a Connor Cody. He might not have been, everyone's cup of tea, but he was a leader. And I think Max Kilman needs a player like that beside him. That's why he's better with Dawson. So when you've got 3 not very vocal centre-backs and then a keeper behind him who really gives you kittens when he's got the ball at the feet, you're going to be a little bit nervous defensively. And I think when you look at a Mario Lemina, he's the one who's vocal. He's the one that you've seen all the social media. He's the one you've seen all the Wolves interviews. You don't see Max Kilman. It's very rare you get an interview from Max Kilman. I'm not saying skippers have to be screaming and shouting, but you feel like Lemina's in charge of things. He feels like a leader, whereas Max feels like he doesn't really want to be in that position. He's almost been forced into it because of the situation we were in. So there's a lot of work to be done there. I think that there's going to have to be some very difficult decisions made. I think there's going to have to be some really brave decisions as well around the personnel, because we're in a little bit of danger next season. I know it's very early, but I think the teams coming up are going to be better than the ones that have gone down. And I think that the lack of quality that we've got has shown in the last sort of 10, 12 games. So there's going to have to be some real difficult decisions made, and they're going to have to be brave, because I think I'm a little bit concerned already, and you haven't finished this season officially yet.
Just one last point on the game, and a player that you mentioned, Jacqui, and this is someone that real splits opinion. And Tyler's not on tonight, and Tyler gets slated for talking about Toti Gomez. And I feel like if you combine Toti Gomez and Santi Bueno, you think you'd have a really good Premier League centre back, because Toti has all his best games without the ball. Like, he kept Phil Foden quiet. Nobody does that. Diaby at Villa, quiet. Kulusevski, Spurs, kept him out. When Wolves are under the cosh and he's defending, talent, I don't think there's many one-on-one defenders. However, when he's asked to play football, he really struggles. So I can see why he splits fans, because he's a fantastic stopper. But is he the person going forward that Gary O'Neill's going to want playing out the back? I'm not sure that he is.
I think he's worth keeping, but I think the main recruit has to be a leader at the back. And I think that leader at the back will help make the other defenders around them better, for starters. So I think that's why that signing is really important. If that's even on the cards, I've no idea. But I think I'd be happy for him to stay as one of the centre halves, because if you're playing three, you need to have at least 4, maybe 5 in total. Although you obviously want players who can play in different positions to make the squad work functionally. But yeah, I'm not anti-Totti. Remember his phenomenal assist for Hwang against Newcastle at home? That was beautiful. It was beautiful. So he's got it. I'm glad he gave up rugby when he turned to football at the age of 16, because he is fun to watch. But yeah, I can understand where Chris is coming from in that regard. And I just think when it comes to priorities, I think the leader at the back, I think, is something that Wolves really need, because I think it would really transform the defence and therefore transform the side.
Moving away from the game, then I think we're sort of segueing into it nicely now, but as a season overall, Nocky, I think if you'd have offered the position where we are now, I'd have absolutely taken it. But as I think someone's put a really good question here, and I think I'll put it up, save it for later, but put it up. But the good performances and the run of form raised expectations, and now we're ending the season feeling disappointed when we probably shouldn't. So it's a really, let me try and find this question. Let's have a look. I'm trying to find it now, and I've lost. I should have had this ready, but I only just thought about it. Here we go. I think Jacob mentioned here, it feels like the season's initially soared past expectations, but then careened once expectations were readjusted accordingly.
I think it was the Cov game that finished us, wasn't it? I mean, as soon as that ball at the back of the net for the winner, I think we were done then. I feel more disappointed than I probably should do about the season, because at the start of it, I really thought we'd been a relegation battle. I was very nervous about it based on the fact we'd lost Lopetegui. The squad was weaker than last year. I was really concerned. I think maybe where we've almost paid the prices for that strong middle part of the season, because if we'd finished on 46 points, if we'd have spread that out over the course of a season in terms of we win a couple, lose a couple, win a couple, I'd feel much more comfortable about where we finished. But the fact that we were in such a good position, and, let's face it, 10 games ago, we were on the verge of going to Wembley in an FA Cup semi-final. We were very close to challenging for Europe, and the expectations are through the roof then. And you're thinking that this is going to be a real strong end, and then bang, we're straight off a cliff and we win one out the next 10, and everyone's low. Whereas if we'd have been a little bit in and around sort of the bottom 3 or 4 for most of the season, then we pulled away and finished where we did in 14th place with 46 points, we'd be absolutely delighted. So it's probably the way that the season's panned out as opposed to the points return. The points return's better than last season. The position isn't, but I'm not too fussed about that. But the points return's better, which with a weaker squad, it has got to, you've got to be pleased with that. It's just the way it's ended. I think it could have been so much more, and the way we lost to Coventry, and you knew what was going to come after that. You knew the season was over, and the players just couldn't get themselves back round again after that. So it doesn't matter who you are or what kind of season you've had. If you lose, if you win 1 out of your last 10 games, you're going to be tore apart by that. So I can understand why people are down. I can understand the frustrations around it. But I think when you put the whole thing into context of what probably everybody's expectations were at the start of the season, it's been a really good effort. It's just a little bit disappointing because it could have been a hell of a lot better if we'd have just stayed a little bit more, maybe injury-free or a little bit more focused in key areas. And we've cost ourselves a decent finish of the season. Who
knows, Nock? Just one January signing. Who knows where that would have taken us? Could Wolves be in the FA Cup final now? But I think we all know our feelings on that.
We've kind of covered this, haven't we? In the sense that Che Adams was the one that we think he was chasing. Now it probably would have cost us 3, maybe 4 million if we'd have signed him in January. Would we have broke the top 7 with Che Adams? Potentially not. But now it looks like we're going to get him on a free. So from a business perspective, it's absolutely the right decision to make. We stayed in the division. We're comfortable. But then when you look financially for all that money, we've
3.3 million a place. If you've lost 3 places, it pays for itself. But
exactly, it's false economy, isn't it, in that sense? So I understand the business decision, but I think the football decision should have took precedent in that situation.
Hopefully a lesson learned, but we shall see. Jacqui, your take on Wolverhampton Wanderers season under Gary O'Neill?
I see it slightly differently, actually, to Nocky, in the sense that yes, I'm disappointed now because of the the ending. One win in 10, wasn't it, in the league in the end, of course. But I don't see that as the Coventry game and the ending of that game ending the season. I absolutely see it as the lack of squad depth. And I think some of it was avoidable. I think decisions that were made not to sign Victor Gyökeres in the summer, and they could have got him for about 25 million, that was turned down, that as in, they wanted to sign him. The footballing people at the club wanted to sign him, put it that way. And he ended up going to Sporting Lisbon, having scored 1 and 2 goals in the Championship. Sorry, 1 goal in per 2 games in the Championship. Then he's gone to Sporting Lisbon for £17.5 million initially. £17.5 million, potentially rising to just 21. And he scored 29 goals in 33 games. That's a missed opportunity. That was a decision that has cost Wolves, I think. And you could say, yes, Wolves have scored loads more goals this season than previous seasons.
I would imagine it with a number 9.
Yeah, but they haven't actually signed. Think about it. Wolves haven't signed a decent, proper striker since Raul Jimenez, when they got promoted in 2018. I don't think. Central striker. Who have they signed? You can't say Hwang's a central striker. He can play across the front 3, but he's not a starting number 9, is he? Cunha's not that. Richly talented player, but he's not a number 9. Sasha Kalajic, what, really? What, with his record of injuries? Fabio Silva, 35 million pounds. 35 million pounds with 1 league goal to his name. And we all know how that's panned out on and off the pitch. Absolute total disaster. So I think bigger picture, there are big issues there. So I don't think it was a Coventry game where heads dropped. Because personally, I was thinking it'd be great to go to Wembley, it'd be great for Wolves to be in the semi-final. But with what players? They were completely running on empty. They'd played way too many minutes because they didn't have the squad depth. Now, Gary O'Neill's take, which I understand, because I always try and put myself in the position of the manager and they make a decision as to whether I think they got it right or not. Just personally, if I was him, I'd probably have done the same thing, which is get the points on the board with the players that you trust first, rather than try and weave in untested youngsters. And then, see where you are at the end of that. Whereas other people are saying, oh, he didn't have to play all those minutes, could have played youngsters. But yeah, then Wolves could have been in a relegation battle. And actually Wolves were coasting, dropping between 10th and 13th, ultimately 14th. But compared to what I thought they were going to be at the start of the season, which is firmly in a relegation battle, I think it's been an absolute dream. 6 wins in 9 Premier League games between Christmas Eve and the end of February. Doing the double over Tottenham. Doing the double over Tottenham, doing the double over Chelsea, beating Man City at home, which I was very fortunate to commentate on, which was in that week after the Luton game with the player sent off and the handball penalty, which seemed to be the end of the world for some people, but really that was really unfortunate. And then there was the capitulation at Ipswich, but Santi Bueno's debut, and it was a kind of rough ride, and it was the only game Kilman didn't start. So I think bigger picture, I think it's been a really good season, genuinely a really good season. I totally understand, by the way, people who are paying their money week in, week out, who are feeling deflated at the end of it. Completely understand that. I've been there, I've been there for years and years and years and years on the terraces, travelling all over the country. I completely get it. So people are perfectly entitled to feel however they want to feel. If they're paying the money and that makes a choice. But personally, I think, given the circumstances of losing the 5 Premier League players last summer, with the most Premier League appearances between them, Neves, Moutinho, Traore, Cody and Jimenez, and losing £100 million worth of talent, and being 5 points and 19 goals better off, I think it's been, relatively speaking, a success. But think what it could have been had better decisions been made, had the green light been given, say, for Jacqui last summer and for somebody in January, which was supposed to happen, and there was a little bit of room for manoeuvre, and that decision was turned down on non-footballing grounds. So, yeah, hopefully lessons have been learned for this summer, because I think if they can move players around, get decent fees, hopefully for players that can be upgraded with some really clever manoeuvring. It's not just a case of going out and spending £30 million on him and £40 million on him. I think you need to be clever about it and work some magic with Matt Hobbs behind the scenes. Hopefully, inverted commas, Pedro Neto can maybe get a good move quite early for a good fee. They're talking about 60 million. I know there's a theory, he's injury prone, but he's only injury prone because he's played every single minute, because he was the only one winger in the entire squad. It was such an imbalanced squad. He wouldn't have been played every single minute if there was another option to give him a rest more often. So I don't think he'd have had those hamstring injuries. And I think he's worth that amount of money if he goes somewhere like Man City or Arsenal, somewhere where they can, bring him in and out. He can have a great 60 minutes and then get rested, or start a game and then come off after however long. So I think he's worth a heck of a lot of money. And I think after 5 years at Wolves, he deserves, a great move. And I think a top club should come and pay whatever Wolves want for him, 60 million or whatever, and let the rebuild commence.
Absolutely. I think there's only Kevin De Bruyne in the Premier League this season that had a better assist per minute ratio than Pedro Neto, but most of those assists that he did came against Man City, Chelsea, Spurs. So he's doing Villa. He's done it against the top 6 sides. So there's no doubt in my mind that you're right there, Jacqui, and protecting him like Man City do, like Arsenal do. Hour here, 30 minutes. Hour 30 minutes. He's not going to have the strain. Then he's going to be able to be explosive and protect himself. So it's. And then there was talk of him struggling in training the week before he got injured, and then he injured his other hamstring. He just think he's had a lot of bad luck. And on form, Pedro Neto, you only got Man City. He's an absolutely incredible footballer. Nocky, moving on, continuing with the season review, I'd love to tell me who your player of the season is for Wolves.
Player of the season.
I didn't prep you with that on purpose because I wanted your real answer.
I think for consistency, I'd probably go Nelson Semedo. I think he's had a really good season. Mario Lemina, I think, has been really solid. But I think I'd probably would go for Semedo based on how consistent and how improved I think he is. He's not getting caught out defensively like he used to. You don't panic when he's in those defensive positions. I think he's had a good season. So consistency-wise, I'll go for him. Yeah,
I think Nelson's had a fantastic season. I think Nelson will be joining Jose Sarr and maybe going to Saudi. I think he's kicked his last ball for Wolves, because I don't see Wolves letting him go on a free transfer in another 12 months. But if they did extend, I'd be more than happy, because he's matured as a footballer. He's not particularly old, and his decision making and defending has become so much better. But he's one that seems to split the fan base, and I don't really know why. Maybe because when players come with a huge fee, people are expecting brilliant performances every week. But
I think He's probably going forward with him, isn't it? I mean, he's brilliant up to the final third, and then he looks like he's never played football before, and that's kind of where he gets. That's where he kind of.
But don't you think that's a problem, Nock? I'm really intrigued by Nelson Semedo, and Gary O'Neill loves him, doesn't he? He's made it really clear he absolutely loves him, and he sees him in training, and he sees him every single minute. So he knows way better than the likes of me. All I'd say though is he cost nearly 37 million from Barcelona 4 years ago. He scored 1 league goal in that time and 4 assists in the Premier League in that time. So to average 1 assist per season, and he hasn't scored for 3 years in the league, it's not all about stats like that, of course. But I think particularly when you're a wing back, you are expected to have a little bit more about you. And I just do think, personally, I think that's an issue. If you've got goals flying in from all departments, perhaps it's less of an issue. I don't think that's enough from a right wing back. He's going to be 31 in November. He's going to miss the first 3 games of the season in the Premier League. And I don't think he offers enough going forwards. And I know Doc's in the squad now, and you could argue he's not the player he was, and Semedo's a lot more athletic and brings a lot more. Absolutely fine, understand that. But think of Matt Doherty at his best in his first spell. The underlapping runs. Even now, he looks like he's got a goal in him every time he plays because he's looking to link and link and link. And I don't think Semedo does that. Plus, I think defensively, he always gets caught out by the ball over the top at the far post. Okay, the last one was Haaland. Like, any player would have been beaten. But he gets nowhere near them. And, I keep being put on Wolves commentary, so sorry about that for anyone who has to listen. It's not my choice. It's not my choice. I generally get sent wherever I'm sent. And it happens to be a lot of Wolves. So therefore I study and I watch details, and I watch every single goal, and I watch how goals are scored and conceded. And Semedo gets caught out a lot with a ball over the top to the far post. So I'm not slating the guy at all. He's had a really good season. I'm not disputing that. I'm talking about going forwards, excuse the pun, from here. If Wolves were to cash in on him, could they sign somebody who is maybe going to offer more in the final third and also be athletic and also be defensively consistent? That's all I'm querying. It's a conversation.
Yeah, I think he's matured as a footballer, and I think of all the players in defence now, Jacqui, I think Nelson's the one that could play in the back four if it was to go permanent. I think he's the one that is good enough. Maybe Aït-Nouri as well. Aït-Nouri always seems to do quite well against Mo Salah. There's certain players you always play well against, but whether Aït-Nouri's there, I don't know. But Nelson, for me, feels like the one player out of those. He's quite mobile. I think he's played in the back four in Portugal and in Spain. I think he's the one player that could do it should Wolves transition to a four. But Jacqui, you've watched Wolves a lot recently. Your player of the season.
Oh yeah, sorry, that was a question. I think I go Lemina. I like what he offers from midfield. I love his personality. I genuinely love his drive. His remember how watching Wolves was just really, really boring for a good couple of years. Do you remember that? The kind of COVID times, but also, Wolves could not score a goal. And that's been remedied this season, which has been frankly wonderful to see. And okay, to concede a few more, but I think we'd all go for a 4-2 over a 2-0 or whatever. But I think Lemina brings so much. He brings energy, he brings leadership, he brings personality, he brings passion. Yeah, I'm a big admirer of his, and I love his relationship with João Gomez in midfield. I just hope Gomez isn't the one, because they're going to have to cash in on somebody, aren't they, realistically, to be able to rebuild. And you'd hope it's sooner rather than later so they can get that ball rolling and get the jigsaw pieces into position. I'd love to see Gomez for another couple of seasons, ideally. But yeah, Lemina for my player of the season.
Yeah, I think Neto would have probably won it if he'd have stayed fit all season because
100%
playing.
Yeah,
but I think you have to play a season. Nelson's up there. I'm the same as you. I absolutely love Mario, and even at Liverpool when the game was over, he's still decking people. He's still pushing it past. He's still knocking it round. The guy's a competitor, and he plays as much as we care, and that's really important. And I know I'm not saying that's not happened to everybody, but you can see he's leaving every bit out there, every game. And even if he's not well, I appreciate every drop he gives for the club, and he seems really happy. I know he had a few off seasons, but didn't do as much at Southampton and Fulham after a brilliant start to his career at Juventus. But he seems to have found a second home again now, and long may it continue. So,
and it's easy to forget his dad died as well.
Yeah, that's his dad.
His dad died, which was a really massive blow for him, and he wasn't gone very long, and he was straight back in the thick of the midfield Premier League battle, and also that he was playing for Gabon as well, which is not local, it's not France. He's travelling a lot and playing 90 minutes for them as well. So I think, and he's played so many minutes for Wolves. He's one of those players that's played way too many minutes, but has still competed every game and not complained.
Just something, again, we've touched on earlier in the season, and again, I'll get mocked on the group chat for this, Jacqui. You'll have more technical knowledge than me. People do question this red zone, but it's a genuine thing, isn't it? When players are struggling fitness-wise, it flags up that in terms of where they are close or not. It doesn't identify a specific body part, but it tells you that they're that fatigued. This player could be injured.
Oh, absolutely. Sports scientists are there for a reason, to try and manage those minutes. And managers are allowed to overrule them, and players sometimes overrule themselves. Mateus Cunha has been overruling science recently because he's been playing with this calf problem that needed rest. Had a little tear in his calf, and he's still insisted on playing because he's got that character and that drive, and that's maybe why he's not been as good as he was at the end of the season. Well, it is why he's not been as good, because he's got this calf problem that he's playing through, and he was trying to be fit enough for the Copa America squad, and he didn't make it in the end. But that's character, and he wanted to play through it. So yeah, absolutely. So they've had all these players that have played and had the load of too many minutes, and the sports scientists will go, look, this guy's in danger of picking up a muscular injury or whatever, which can keep them out for however long. But if you don't have the squad rotation available because of squad decisions that have been made or whatever the reasons are, then those players are playing too much, and when they get injured, then those are the consequences of those decisions.
Yeah, because I think as well now, I mean, at all levels, well, maybe not obviously Sunday league when people still have a few pints on a Saturday night and play on a Sunday like we used to, Nock, but at all levels of football now, particularly at the top, people's diets, people's training, the stretching, the science now, these guys, footballers have never been as peak athletically as they are now. So therefore, you're asking more and more. The game's getting faster. Players are getting bigger and stronger. So it's understandable that you could say 20 years ago, well, players are playing week in, week out. I don't think that's possible for a centre midfielder anymore. That you see people going round, box to box. It's just not possible. Yeah, but interesting. Maybe we need to get a sports scientist on there as well, Nock, to tell us a little bit more about it. Maybe they could speak to Tyler, who doesn't believe in sports science at all.
They're playing an extra 10 minutes or so per game these days. That's another thing, because of the decision that's been made to make sure that every single stoppage is punished, whereas previously it wasn't. So now they're playing, and I was listening to a podcast about NWSL, the top women's league in America, which is a fantastic league that I commentate on over there as well. And they were saying there's an average of 15 minutes extra.
That's a joke.
Because don't forget, when you see the game at the end, when it says 90 plus 7 plus 8 or whatever, don't forget there's the end of the first half to add on as well, which people have forgotten about. You scrubbed it and it's gone back to 45, hasn't it? So you say 90 plus 7, you think they're playing 97 minutes. No, they haven't. They've played an extra few minutes at the end of the first half too. That can add up and take its toll. So when you've got a smaller squad with way less flexibility, but you're being told to play a lot more minutes, this is what you're left with.
It's a big ask, but we're definitely going to move on to VAR in a minute, which is good. Which I know is going to be very, very interesting. Finally, in terms of the season review, Nock, I'm really happy with Gary O'Neill, and I know what I did like in the game recently is he held his hands up. He said that team didn't really recognise what I'd done. He said, I have to do better. I like a coach that acknowledges and takes responsibility. I don't like it's this fault, it's that fault, someone else, someone this. Like, this is Gary's, as Jacqui said, this is his first full season. And you can see he's a very confident guy and he believes in himself. And some of the performances that we've put on, you can see why, because he's delivered the goods. But yeah, your take on that.
I mean, I didn't want him initially when he came in. I felt like it was Wolves waving a white flag at the time. I thought we were accepting relegation. But I didn't realise how his attention to detail, how effective that could be, and the difference he brings in terms of the systems he plays and the intelligence he's got and the way he gets the players on board. So it's going to be interesting to see what he can do if he can get his own players in, because he's been working with players who were already here. He hasn't really been able to add to the squad. What we have brought in, we haven't really been able to get on the pitch. So I think he's I think you've got to be pleased with what he's done. You'd be very harsh to think that we could have done better with anybody else based on the situation we were in with the players that we lost and losing the manager at the time we did. So he's definitely done well enough to have another run at it next season, and hopefully he gets a little bit of backing, he gets a little bit of support. My kind of worry with him is a little bit that if they don't back him, there's a risk we could have another Lopetegui situation, because he's clearly not happy. He's vocalised that he's unhappy with the business at Christmas, and he's already kind of vocalised where the improvements need to be made. So I just kind of hope we get the backing early on in the transfer window, and we're not penny pinching then going into the last few weeks trying to get these deals done, because I do think you risk losing him. So I think there'll be a few clubs who'd be interested in Gary O'Neill, but he's done well. His remit, I think, was probably just to make sure we stayed in the league and keep us away from the relegation battle if he can. He's done that really well. We had a good cup run, despite how it ended, to get to a quarter final of a cup competition's a success. He's improved players individually, which I'm most impressed with. I think when you look at Cunha, I think he's recognised he's not directly a central striker, so he's found a way to bring him a little bit deeper, and he can affect games by bringing the ball through midfield. He's made Neto a better player. He's just improved everyone individually, which I think management skills are definitely up there with some of the best that I've seen at the club. So I think he's done really well when you look at the whole season in context, and I'm looking forward to seeing what he can do when he's had that full pre-season. He's brought in players that can affect the system he wants to play, and he can mould us. I don't think he wants us to be playing a three at the back, but I think he's kind of been forced into that with the personnel that we've got. So if he's got the opportunity to kind of mould us the way he wants us to look, I think you'll see quite an efficient, effective team who are a little bit more solid defensively and a little bit more intent going forward. So yeah, all in all, I think you'd be really harsh to criticise the end, the overall season based on the end.
Absolutely, yeah. I think Gary O'Neill's got you convinced, Knocker. I'd love to play the clip from the start of the season, but they're like two different people.
Yeah.
But what strikes me the most about Gary is his attention to detail. Now, I think it's well publicised that he's out every day with the whistle and the cones, individually talking to players, taking groups. He's thoroughly involved with the whole squad, getting involved, not sitting in his office away from me. He's there with the players. And I like the fact that, I know he worked under Nuno, we play the same way every week. Wolves will tweak their style. That, you know what I mean? He'll do his homework on the opponents. He'll try and identify a weakness. Like the tactical masterclass away at Spurs and at Chelsea and at home to Man City show that he can, he can switch things around. So yeah, I'm chuffed with him. Jacqui, a final summary on Gary O'Neill and Wolves season?
What a positive surprise in terms of the way things were when he arrived and the end of the season. Yes, I know it petered out, but we've gone into the reasons for that. I think there are very genuine reasons for that. I've been so impressed with him. Obviously, I know a lot of people who know him, and everything I've heard about him has been positive, genuinely. His work ethic, he's one of those that's first in, last out type, and naming no names, Wolves have had managers in the not too distant past who've been last in, first out, despite being very popular with supporters. So work ethic is key for me. Man management skills, Nock touched on it, the way he's improved players. He's really improved players. I mean, from what I've heard from people quite close to the situation, there wasn't a lot of coaching going on, particularly before he arrived, like actual coaching. Now, you could say it was a firefighting job. Fair enough, I get that. You just have to set them up solid, and those 3 wins in 4 for Lopetegui are what kept Wolves up and the start of last year. But then there was the 6-0 hammering at Brighton, and the nature of that. Oh my God, yes, I was commentating on that as well. But
and Arsenal,
apparently, and the 5-0 Arsenal. There were those kind of capitulations, but those players weren't coached particularly as well as the way they have been this season, and improving individual players. The way he talks to the players, he's not so recently retired that he can. He can talk to them, get the best out of them. Management, to my mind, is getting the best out of the players you have, making the team greater than the sum of the parts. Now, he wasn't there to bring in any of the parts that he wanted. He was given this bunch of players, a wonky squad, imbalanced squad, not enough of this, too much of that, whatever. And I think from everything I've heard that he's absolutely made the best of that, and they've just run out of steam because of circumstances beyond their control. But I think he's done a fantastic job, and rather than thinking, has he done well enough to stay on for another season, I couldn't be further away from that. I think it's very much a case of Wolves have to do enough to make sure he stays, because there are other clubs sniffing around. I've heard very much about that. And, you have to be mindful that his family lives in Kent, and it's a big commitment and his kids, big commitment for him to be where he is, which he's more than happy to be by all accounts, of course. But obviously, you don't want another situation whereby it's just not worth it and the goalposts have been moved 3 times, apparently, supposedly, as has been said about the previous incumbent. So I think it's a case of everyone working together, and I'm really, really excited to see what can happen in the summer and next season. I'm a really positive, glass half full kind of person. I think reorganise that defence, give him the kind of players that he wants, and hopefully get an early sale. And I think Wolves could be really going places under O'Neill.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. It's, as Nocky rightly said, 1 win in 10 at the end of the season. You'll take a shine off the very best of managers, and as supporters, it's. And then you have the heartbreak of Coventry, and then the end of the season like that, it's tough. But Gary's partially acknowledged that himself in terms of obviously the squad. He acknowledged that he could have done better himself in there, so he's been honest. But I hope he gets a full pre-season. Now, it sounds like De Zerbi's left Brighton and he might be going to Man United. That sounds like that's what's happening there. Vincent Kompany then could possibly be replacement at Brighton. I'm only just trying to make you feel better, Jacqui, because we don't. Brighton, yeah, you know they'll pick who they want. So hopefully Gary O'Neill, and obviously West Ham as well, have got Lopetegui now. So that's one club I think Gary would have been interested in if the job would have come up there. But we'll move away from Gary O'Neill, ending on a positive, and I hope he absolutely has a brilliant season. He's back fully. Now, just over a week ago, Jacqui came forward with some very strong and a very well articulated letter that was broken up in different formats by the BBC and Sky. But reading off the BBC page here, the Premier League will vote on whether to scrap the video assistant referee VAR from next season at the AGM next month. Wolves have formally submitted a resolution to the Premier League, which will trigger a vote whether the 20 members meet in Harrogate on June the 6th. The club said that VAR was introduced in good faith, but has led to numerous unintended negative consequences that are damaging the relationship between football and fans. Now, I've been very critical of Jeff, and I think he has got off lightly with some of the poor decisions that he's made, but this is something I am fully on board with. It's taken a stance. It's not like they could punish us anymore with VAR. Hold my breath, who knows? But not that I believe there's a theory against Wolves. I just think there's been some bad decisions. But Jacqui, your take on Jeff's thoughts going forward, Jeff's attack really, or has he put his post in the ground to try and get other clubs to jump on? I don't think he'll be successful, but it's a brave move, and I think it's a voice that football fans needed.
Yeah, well, I think when you see what's happened in Sweden, is they voted to keep VAR away, not to get rid of it, but to keep it away. So their own, the only one in Europe of the sort of bigger leagues not to have it. It maybe kind of empowered Jeff Shea a little bit and made him think, well, hang on a minute, we're the ones that voted it in. It's not the Premier League that voted it in. I think people forget it's the clubs that voted it in. And I got a load of stick about this when I tweeted a couple of weeks ago about how VAR's here to stay and it needs to be improved type thing. I think people thought I was saying VAR's working and it's great and crack on, lads. No, that's not what I said on any level. And actually I did a long, big piece in the Times recently, like really in-depth piece with Richard Scudamore, former Premier League chief executive and former Premier League referee Peter Walton, and Conor Cody as well. If anyone has a Times subscription, it's on there. And it was all about the issues that are there, as well as ways to try and make it better. Because I think it's entirely up to fans to be able to vent their feeling however they want. It's entirely their opinion. They pay their ticket money. It's really bloody expensive to go to football these days, in the Premier League especially. And if your match day experience is horrendous, that you absolutely shout it from the rooftop, no problem at all. But what I was trying to do was share information that I'd had, because I'd spent 2.5 hours on the phone to PGMOL in the build-up to doing that article. So I'd got a lot of insight as to how things work and what they're trying to do to improve it. So that's really what I was trying to share, rather than saying it's great. There's a big difference between those two things. So from Jeff Shea's point of view, I understand why he feels that way, because anyone connected with Wolves has had a horrendous season, VAR. They just have. Even if the decisions have been correct, it's felt as though they've been more going against Wolves. There are lots of neutral journalists who say that, and the points minus tally kind of points to that. Over the last 5 seasons, Wolves are the worst off, 17 points down over 5 seasons, compared to Brighton, who are 4 points up or something. So I do understand it, but I'll also be honest and say I was slightly cynical about it because when I first saw it, I thought, oh, there's some season ticket price hikes to be announced soon, that it would be quite nice to kind of overshadow with this, because he knows. I mean, he's been known to read message boards, Molineux mix and what have you at Molineux before. We've seen him in action.
Thanks, Jeff, for watching to the Wolves report tonight, by the way.
Yeah, maybe he's watching the Wolves report. Sorry, Jeff, but so maybe he'll have his finger on the pulse. He's at Molineux every game, obviously. He'll know the fans despise it more than any other set of fans. Wolves hate it with good reason, and I think maybe he hates it too from his personal experience of watching, and every time a goal goes in. And I was doing commentary of the West Ham game, and I could hear because we hear the VAR in our ear. We don't hear the referee, but we hear all the VAR speak throughout the game, so we can hear exactly what's happening and how how they urge the referee to go over to the monitor and have another look at it and judge for yourself type thing. And it does feel kind of inevitable. So I understand why he's done it, but I just don't think it's going to go through. And when I did the stats on my tweet about it was 82% success rate before and the 96% after, that's not PGMOL stats. That's from the independent panel. Again, that's something I tried to explain, but people were unanimously angry that they're marking their own homework, but they're not. It's an independent panel of ex-players, managers, referees, what have you, who've come up with that. And the reason I said it is not because it's correct. Oh, 96% correct. I'm saying that. No. That is what I've been told is the reason why Premier League clubs as a whole are in favour of VAR, is because they feel that ultimately the outcome is more correct, which works in their favour. But that's a totally separate issue from the match-going fan. That is the issue that needs to be massively resolved. Honestly, it does feel, and I can hear it, it feels as though there's checking, can we find a reason to rule this out? Can we find a reason to send someone off? I'm sure they're not thinking they're doing that, but I think the fact that technology is there and they're being paid that day's shift to be there and to review everything, I think it's gone that way. And I think they need to get well away from that. It's not just PGMOL. In America, they're re-reviewing everything and it's taking hours. And that's not what it's for. It's for the headbutts of the ball. It's for the swipe and kicking in the Achilles when the referee's facing the other way. It's for mistaken identity, sending the wrong player off. That's what it was brought in for. That's what it needs to get back to. The bar has to be up there. It's for howlers only, not, well, you could say that was a foul, so therefore should we give a penalty for that?
Yeah, it's not for a Matthias Cunha arm swing that has no impact on the goal at all.
And it's not for the penalties Wolves conceded at Sheffield United and against Newcastle.
And Fulham.
Absolute nonsense when one of them's not given on the field. So I think that's the solution personally, but it has to change and they have to make it they are doing it. I know that already they're moving to a much, much swifter resolution. And even if they don't get everything right, they're moving to let's not intervene on everything. Let's try not to. So let's see.
Jacqui, I'm going to let Nocky off his lead now. I want him to have his say on VAR. Nocky, we've been talking about it all season. In fact, that we spent half the Wolves, and that's just wrong. I will hold my hands up. I wanted VAR at the start. I'd watch tennis, I'd watch rugby, I'd watch cricket and thought it would work. Obviously, football is not those sports. It has spoiled many a match day to the fact that the three of us have said we're not enjoying it like we used to anymore. I want to go to a game, 40 years old or not, I'll go nuts when we score a goal. I can't do that now because I'm going to feel like an idiot 30 seconds later because Huang gives someone a dirty look and he's being booked for it in the goal. Okay, you're off the lead. VAR.
I just utterly detest it. I detest everything it stands for. I think it's ruined the game. I mean, I know the 96% is from an independent adjudicator, whoever's looking after that, but I'd love to know what that's built off. I mean, when you look at against Man City, it was universally decided that shouldn't have been given as a penalty, but also they said that VAR were right not to intervene. So does that sit with the 96% because they didn't get involved? So in theory, that's a correct decision. I think I don't disagree that it could be 96%, but is it 96% of what they're actually reviewing? What about stuff they're missing? I just think that the whole thing stinks, to be honest, from top to bottom. I mean, my dad's been going since 1960, and he's very much 50-50 about renewing next season because it's just destroying the matchday experience for him. And I think there's not a chance in hell it's going to go. I mean, there's no way at all. But I think what that also kind of exposes is the lack of supporter interaction from big clubs and the decisions that they're making. I mean, I feel like my club have represented me and represented my feelings by doing this and pushing forward. Every poll I've seen from every other supporters group want VAR to be removed from the game. So for me, if your club aren't interacting with supporters groups, you're no longer a supporter, you're now a customer, because you're being dictated to what the expectations are and what you should see. And I just think the whole thing is affecting the game. This isn't American football. And for me, everything we're doing with VAR, with these sim bins that we're talking about, with the review system, all that, everything is tailored to attack the American market. That's how it feels to me. I feel like they see it as an untapped resource. We've got businessmen and women at the top of the game now. We want to make as much money as we can into football. So let's push the brand. Let's push football as a brand into the foreign market. How do we do that? Let's make it more interesting for Americans. I love to hear the reviews. I love to hear the systems. Let's push it that, mate. It might not be, but that's how it feels to me as a supporter. And I watch the playoff games and you know, the goals are whistling in. There's no VAR. They're just enjoying the football. And then you're watching the games, you're watching...
Particularly on Friday night.
Well, yeah, the West Brom game was brilliant, but for completely different reasons. But it just feels to me like we've lost the fundamental of what football's supposed to be. When that ball hits the back of the net, that spontaneous feeling of emotion. You know, I'm a 42-year-old man, and I've been in tears nearly more than once because of my football team and what they've done on the pitch when that ball hits the back of the net. I'm losing that now because the ball hits the back of the net, and all of a sudden I'm looking, was that a handball? Was that an offside? Could that be there? And if it is 96%, great, but at what expense are we willing to pay for this 96%? Is it to the point where it'll be, well, yeah, it's 96%, but his toenail was a fraction offside, or maybe there was a slight bit of contact there so we can go back. But if we look at it in slow motion, we can maybe find the foul there, and we're re-refereeing the game, and that's not what VAR was brought in for in the first place. So, yes, it might be 96%, and I don't dispute anyone who's made those facts. I'd question where they're all bought from, but there's a price to pay for that, and I don't want 100% accuracy, because football is not 100% accurate. A player goes through one-on-one. Steve Bull used to put 4 in the stand, and then the 5th one, he'd rock it into the top corner, because the game isn't perfect. You will make mistakes, and we need to push it back to the referee, push it back to the assistant referee, and let's make the decisions now as it should be. You should be able to go into a park with your mates, 3 coats on the floor, and play football. You shouldn't have to be worrying about how it's, well, that would be a VAR decision, that would be this. I just think the whole thing, we've lost what football should be. We've lost the football people in the game, and we've just filled it full of money men and corporate sponsors and Americanized ways of doing it. And for me, it is destroying the experience, and that's, I don't like it, is what I'm trying to say, I suppose.
Nocky, I'm going to put you down as a maybe.
But it's you know, I mean, when we were playing Villa, and you know, we hit that last minute winner, you weren't really thinking about VAR because it just wasn't there. But all of that can be taken away. You're talking a flick of a hand, you're talking a tiny little bit of contact, or let's slow this replay down, let's look at it in granular detail. And football's not supposed to be granular detail, it's supposed to be spontaneous.
They're going to move away from that. I think they've realised they have to move away from it. It has to be for the headbutts, you know, the studs, the intentional stuff, things. And also, don't forget, on a positive note, semi-automated offsides coming in autumn, so September, October, sometime after.
I think that's a good thing.
Because
fast technology.
Yeah, I don't know if you watch the on YouTube, they're all available, but the Howard Webb's sessions are quite interesting once a month, where he breaks down everything with Michael Owen and stuff, and I kind of binge watch those before that Times piece. And yeah, what kind of draws, you know, happiness from my soul is when you see the lines very slowly drawn across and blah blah blah, dot dot dot, and then the vertical dot dot dot, and everyone's standing around waiting 3 or 4 minutes. That will stop.
Not good enough.
Personally, I think the better way to do it, I just think the simpler way over the years, was just draw a thicker line, so then you don't have the toenail, you don't have the armpit, you don't have any of that, because the laws were written way pre-VAR. So the wording of the law is when the ball is played. When the ball is played is not one particular millisecond. It's not 1/100th of a second. There are several 1/100ths of a second when the ball is played, which is why if you have a thicker line, if the player breaches that line, then it's very clear offside, no toenails, done in seconds, no vertical lines, bosh, done. Instead, they're bringing in the semi-automated offside, which we had in the World Cup, which I was commentating on. It was very quick, it was very clear, just like when you see the goal line technology, you can see it for yourself and you go, okay, fair enough. None of the dot, dot, dots. I can't wait to get rid of that.
Yeah, I don't think the vote will pass. I think there'll be a few clubs that will, but I just can't see it, to be honest. But what I would say, Jacqui, is I think I tweeted about this. If every club wrote an email to every supporter and member and put the vote to them, I think VAR will be gone very, very quickly. But unfortunately, the fans aren't going to get a say. Should they get a say?
Yes. Why wouldn't you ballot? Why wouldn't you ballot? Because it's the match. It's people on the match day experience. Everyone's welcome to support the club, and I don't criticise anyone whether you watch it at home or whether you watch it in a different country or whether you go to the games. But it's the match day experience for the match going fans that are paying the price. So why wouldn't you ballot season ticket holders and members? Why wouldn't you ballot them and say, what's your actual opinion? And then whatever the opinion is, that becomes your club's vote.
I think the reason for that, Nocky, is because they're trying to improve it as quickly as possible. I'm just thinking, what would the reason for that be? And I think their perspective would be that they're trying to improve it. So because they're all these officials, there's 7 Premier League debutant officials this season. This is referees, not assistants. 7. That is a lot. They've lost a huge amount of experience. I'm not excusing mistakes. I'm not saying, oh, that's all right then, for everyone's tears in the stadium. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying from their perspective, it's a bedding in process, and they are training them as quickly as possible to get them up to speed to make better decisions, which is what we want, but much, much faster. And for me, it has to be the speed, and it has to be the intervention level has to be so high that you hardly ever hear VAR. When people go, oh, but that for me, that was a red card, and someone else goes, not for me. We just all need to suck it up and go, okay, subjective calls. We need to just get on with, sod it, get on with it. That's just how it is. We're not all going to agree. But when it's so blatantly clear, like a headbutt off the ball, that's when it should come in, and then we should remember it exists. I don't want to see it 4 or 5 times in a game. It should be originally it's supposed to be once every 3 or 4 games. How long ago was that? So it's not out because they think it's a work in progress.
What I'm struggling with, Jacqui, is I actually think it's progressed. Since at Leicester City, when Dendoncker or Bolly got punished for the handball 5 years ago, it's got worse. And it's like...
They changed the rules after that, didn't they? Do you remember? Yeah, they changed it.
It's so Wolves. It's such a Wolves thing to happen. Wasn't it after the Max Kilman one as well? Didn't he give away a handball at Leicester?
Yes, after the Kilman one.
Yeah. It's so Wolves to get a rule changed after you've conceded a penalty. It's just... I want to be wrong. I love my game. I love the social with my family, with my mates, my podcast, tweeting. I love my football team and I love football, but it is not the same anymore. It's not the same. It's a good job these idiots on here tolerate me, because otherwise it'd be a lonely place. But football's just not the same, and they have got their work cut out this summer to make it better. Because I'm going next season, of course I am, but that spark has gone, and that's VAR, slow, not always correct, but yeah.
It's always going to be subjective though, isn't it? That's the point. I mean, it doesn't matter how much you improve the technology or you improve the decision making, it will always come down to a subjective decision, and people aren't going to agree with it. And I get this, we want it to be for certain issues, but the first time it really impacts a Man City, a Chelsea, a Man United, we'll start regressing again, and we'll start getting back into, well, we need to start re-refereeing the game because Pep's not happy about a decision that was given against him. It should have been reviewed, or we've missed this and it becomes a missing, and then we're going to go back into granular detail again. I just think as long as it is run by humans, it's never going to please people. It's always going to slow the game down. It's always going to be subjective. And you get into a point now where you don't really need an assistant referee anymore. I'm not sure what the lino does other than stick the flag up for a throw-in now. Because they'll put an offside up, they'll wait 2 minutes until the player actually touches the ball, that offside goes up, and they don't really serve any purpose.
Nock making redundancies at the PGMOL.
The referees are heading the same direction, aren't they? Because they're not making the big decisions anymore, and that's my frustration with it. Is referees are human; they can make mistakes, and they probably did get pelters before, but I think you've got to give them an element of, yeah, you've got that wrong, you've got it wrong, it is what it is. But when we're saying, I'm not completely sure, it's like when we had the offside against West Ham and they sent the referee to go and look at it. You're sending the referee to look at an offside decision.
But it's a subjective one as to whether he was interfering. That's why.
That's the key, Jacqui. It's subjective. That's the point. So the referee at the time didn't deem it to be offside. No one appealed for it. So the VAR looks, but the second the VAR sends him to go and have a look, you've removed the subjectivity then. As soon as you send him, you're telling him he's wrong. And that's why all these decisions, when they get sent, 99.9 of them are going to stick with the decision that the VAR has told them to do. So that's my frustration with it. And I think it's, as long as humans are at the helm, you're never going to get it right, because someone's always going to be wound up, and it's so slow. It just makes the game so stodgy, and it's not the fast flowing. I mean, how many times have you been in a situation where your team's pressing, you're putting a team under pressure, one VAR decision, you've lost some momentum, and you're back, and we've conceded goals on the back of VAR decisions going against us. So you've got a 4 or 5 minute VAR review for a goal that you thought you'd scored. It's disallowed, and bang, we go and give away a goal in injury time. It's just, there's so many frustrations for me around it.
If you are checking a goal for 2, 3, 4 minutes, it's not clear and obvious. And this grey area of clear and obvious, I know it's not, and it was set out with good intentions, but it feels like a huge cop-out now that just doesn't work, because if it's not clear, for me, was it a foul, yes or no? Okay, well, I'm not sure. Well, it's not a foul, then you stick with your original decision. It's yes or no, because clear and obvious, you're just leaving, there's like black and white, grey in the middle, huge, yeah. And it's just, yeah, as you can see, guys, I'm pretty frustrated.
Peter Walton told us on this, we actually did a Zoom chat with Mac Dickinson for the piece in the Times that was over three different sections. And he said that he was one of the people that came up with clear and obvious. And he said that their plan for the term clear and obvious was, if I'm sent to the monitor, this decision has to hit me like a punch in the gut that I've made a massive mistake. He said that's what the intention was with VAR, and he admits that's not what it's become. So the problem is, when we talk about a high bar, Gary O'Neill wants a low bar. He's actually saying he wants everything to be re-refereed, because he's saying, well, hang on a minute, you're re-refereeing that, but you're not re-refereeing that. That's the problem we've got with it, is to, in one game, because it's different officials or a same official on a different day, some of them are re-refereeing a decision because they think, well, I thought it was a foul, but the referee on the field thought it wasn't. But you, Ryan, might have thought something's a foul, but I think it's not. And you, Nocky, might be vice versa. So this is the problem. You've got the fact that it exists means one guy's going to think it's a foul, another guy's going to think it's not. And I think the only solution to deal with it, if they're not going to do away with it, which I don't think they are realistically, I don't think the clubs are going to vote for Jeff Shee's amendment. So what it has to be, for me personally, it has to go back to that major howler. It hits you like a punch in the gut that you've made a big mistake as a referee. Oh, shit, I didn't see that. I didn't see that massive mistake that I've just made. And at the moment, it's not that.
Happens.
That's what has to happen, I think.
Yeah, I really do. And Nocky's been consistently brilliant all season. And he's like, from me, who was pro VAR, he's turned me 4 way around, and now it's killing me. But Jacqui, I hope you're right, and they implement these changes, and it's so minimal, the interference, because you just want our game back. Yes, it looks like violent conduct, or someone's been done, or there's a ridiculous handball that's been missed. I'm all for that. That's fine, but absolutely clear and obvious, not somewhere in the middle. I think we should draw the line now on VAR and Jeff's letter, because I'd like to answer a few questions.
Don't talk about lines and VAR, mate, because they do that with the offsides and they get that wrong half the time.
Let's do a few questions to end out episode 100. Let's have a look. There's someone about question about VAR. I'm not going to do that. Here we go. Let's bring on to a positive. Vaughan asked, does Gary deserve a new contract? For me, he does. Nocky.
What's his original contract? Was it 2, 3 years?
3. I think he's got a 3-year deal. So he's got 24 left. Yeah.
I wouldn't be against it. I think that Jacqui's touched on it earlier. There's going to be some interest. So I think, get him locked down if you can. I don't think contracts for managers are really worth the paper they're printed on these days, to be completely honest. So you maybe put a big release clause in there if somebody does come in looking for him. But I think he's done enough. I don't imagine he's on mega money at Wolves. He wasn't a particularly what you'd say a household name for a Premier League manager, so he's probably done enough to earn one.
Yeah, Jacqui, I think I know your answer on this.
Yeah, I do like him. I do think Wolves are in really good hands with him, genuinely, and I think he's surprised a lot of people. I think he's proven to be a fantastic manager in the making. I think it would make him feel better about life at Wolves if he's given a better contract, but I think he's proved himself to be a better manager than most people thought he was when he was coming in. And I think the last thing Wolves need is any chopping and changing. Of course, it's not going to, prevent him from going if a mega club comes in for him in the next few months. But they're only going to do that if he's had an amazing start to the season. So I think it would be a win-win. You could argue it's not priority at the moment with 2 years left, but I think it'd be healthy for everyone if they did tie him to a line.
I'm very much give him a new deal, and for something we haven't had for a while, we haven't had stability. There's been new manager, different system, didn't really know where we're going, rolling the dice, Bruno Lage, get us out of jail, Lopetegui. Let's show Gary that we care and we appreciate him and back him, because I want some stability again. We've seen what he's capable of when he's flirted with us with some of his football. We've mentioned the 2 doubles of beating Man City, the unfortunate that somehow Wolves managed to lose at Man United. If that's what's on offer when he's got a strong 11, what's on offer with a full pre-season, and what's on offer if he's committed as well. So for me, Vorner, it's an absolute must for me. Nocky, you can have this one. I'm going to leave this one away from Jacqui. Mosman says, can you justify the rumoured 10% increase in season tickets? We're after 9 o'clock now, Nocky. You fill your boots, kid.
I'd like to think they wouldn't, because financially it's not going to bring them in a huge amount of money, and it's a kick in the guts for the supporters, isn't it? I feel like it will be around that, maybe even slightly more than that, because if as we said last week, if they were going to do us a favour, we would have known about it before the Palace games. The fact that they haven't announced it yet kind of makes me a little bit concerned about what it's going to be. It plays into a little bit of a risk, doesn't it? Because if you're putting 10% on the season ticket prices, you kind of expect a better product next season, which means that we'll be anticipating we should be pushing higher at the table. So
just to jump into that, mate. Yeah. So let's say roughly Wolves took 20 million in gate receipts last year. Yeah. You do the maths. That's an extra £2 million. How much is that £2 million going to change Wolves' season in modern football? It's not. Put it into perspective, it's Sarabia's wages for 27 weeks. So what difference is that going to make?
Yeah, I mean, they're going to go up, aren't they? Because everyone's season ticket goes up. And it's supply and demand. We're a Premier League team with a waiting list for season tickets. So they know that they're going to sell them. People are going to pay for them. As much as you get frustrated about your team, it's incredibly difficult to walk away. So people will renew at that price. I'd like to think that they wouldn't. Maybe they could, with the stuff that's going on. And we know the Midlands has been hit as hard as anybody else in terms of people struggling to pay bills. So you'd like to think that they wouldn't. And as you said, I mean, for the sake of a few million, is it really worth putting fans through further financial hardship? But whether it's justified or not, I certainly think it's going to be at least 10%.
And not only that as well, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think someone tweeted about Wolves are going to be £5 million better off because 2 of the parachute teams have got promoted. So Wolves are already £5 million better off. So not that I'm sure Fosun or Jeff will be taking that into consideration.
We're a business, aren't we? Businesses are there to make money. So there's an opportunity to make a couple of million. It's still a couple of £1 million, isn't it? No matter how you get it. So I think we'd be very naive to think it's not going to go up.
No, yeah. I'm bracing myself for the worst. Jacqui, Paul wants to know who the current first 11 is getting sold to fund the rebuild. Personally, Jacqui, I think Neto's as good as gone. I think we've seen him play his last game for Wolves, and I think there'll be one big going away other than that. One big departure.
Well, it obviously all depends on who wants to put the money on the table and sign the players. So you can say as much as you like, oh yeah, well, we'll let Neto go for 60 million. Okay, that's fine. As long as somebody comes in and offers 60 million. What they might do is think, well, Wolves need to sell a big one in order to finance the rebuild, and really they need to do it as early on as possible. So let's play hardball. So that's the problem. Your players are only worth whatever somebody's willing to pay. But I think ideally it'd be Neto. I desperately would hate to see him go because of what he can do. But I think realistically, after 5 years and signing for £10.8 million from Lazio, what a signing he's been. He's given the club a lot of joy. But I think there's that Neves feeling that no, you wouldn't begrudge him if he went. So hopefully one of the big boys would pay that for him. He's still only young. Aït-Nouri, potentially. I love watching him play. Richly talented. Absolutely love him to bits. But if you're thinking, if you could get crazy money for him, you could get a solid left wing back. I mean, look at what Palace paid for Munoz. Absolutely brilliant wing back. He's been absolutely fantastic for them. They paid £8.5 million.
The deals are out there. We've just got to hope Hodge is cooking again.
it's not about who you want to leave, but who would you be prepared to leave if there was money on the table. So I'd say Aït-Nouri just in that regard, because you could get a left wing back for a fraction of, I think, what potentially Wolves could get. I really don't want to see João Gomez go. I just think he needs to stay there another season or two, and then he could potentially be on kind of Chelsea midfielder money. Because look at Moises Caicedo, what, 115 million pounds from Brighton.
Those boys got bossed by João Gomez this season, by the way.
Yeah. Enzo Gonzalez, okay, he's a World Cup winner in fairness, Enzo, but Hernandez. But yeah, I would say in that order, probably Neto, Aït-Nouri, hopefully not João Gomez, but maybe Max Kilman, controversial, but I think maybe that's not the end of the world if he were to go for a big thing.
To answer that question in reverse, I think the players I want to build the team around are Matheus Cunha and João Gomez. For me, and Mario, those three are the heartbeat of the team. They're the characters. I mean, I'm not saying that the rest of them don't try, because they clearly do. But for me, those three are the hub of the team that I want to build on next season. I don't want to lose any of the players you mentioned, but if it means there's some smart recruitment from South America, from France, wherever, and it means 4, 5, 6 players coming in if 2 guys go, then I think we have to do it, because clearly the squad is lacking. Thank you for your question, Paul. Last but not least, we'll go with Carl. And I'll put this because of what was said by Gary, which I thought was really, really interesting. Carl asks, who out of the loan players would you like to keep for next season that will improve the group we have got? Well, what Gary O'Neill said earlier on, you can only guess who he's alluding to. But what he wasn't said, it was yesterday, wasn't it? He was quite clear in his thoughts about the players he got rid of in terms of the loan. And he's absolutely bang on, and it's refreshing. It doesn't matter how talented you are or how good you think you are. It's an honour to play for Wolves, and you learn it and you'll graft, because if you're not, we're not interested in signing you. Okay.
I mean, obviously, I don't know the players' individual personalities, so I'm not close enough to it for that. I'd like to give Podence another go, because I do strongly rate him. I think he's a real good player, and he tore the Villa apart, didn't he, in the European semi-final? And I think Chiquinho as well. I think he's got a little bit about him. But again, there's rumours of maybe a personality issue there as well. So other than that, I'm struggling to keep any of the others.
I don't really see. Giancarlo Guedes was a player that we've been linked with for 3 or 4 years.
We've got to sell him, not loan him out.
A clear talent with a hammer of a right foot, but he didn't look like he ever wanted to be here. And if you're not interested, then don't come, Jacqui.
No, sorry, but I think I mentioned before, character's really big for me in terms of whether you like a player or not. It's huge impact. And I really liked hearing Gary O'Neill talking about the culture. I really like that, because I think it's easy for us from the outside to look at what's going on in that bit of grass in the middle of the field and judge players on that. But actually, they can have so much more of an impact, positively or negatively, in the dressing room and in terms of their personality on the field. And anyone who doesn't want to be there, like Gonzalo Guedes apparently never wanted to be there. Trincao never wanted to be there, for God's sake. There are all those kind of players who never wanted to be there. Fabio Silva, I think we can all agree, has just been an absolute disaster of a signing on and off the field. Absolute shambles. And whatever they can get for him, then...
Do you think they'll sell him? I mean, his market value now...
going to buy him? That's the question. Who will...
and that's my point. Do you extend him by a year and then loan him out and hope he improves next season, where someone will maybe put in a decent bid for him? Because I can't see us getting more than 5. Maybe his age, you push up to maybe 10 at a push, but I just don't see anyone coming in and saying, we'll take him
pound for pound. Fabio Silva is the worst footballer to sign in Wolverhampton Wanderers since 1877. Now, he came with, like, we were sold this generational dream. But if you sign a player that scored 1 goal in the Portuguese league, no disrespect to the Portuguese league, and with a handful of appearances to spend 35 big ones on, that is a joke of transfer business, and it is not acceptable. And we've kind of paid the price for that for the last few seasons, because that is a huge chunk of a club like Wolves' money and budget. And now, I know he's on, I think, roughly, I don't want to speculate on wages too much, but he's on huge money anyway. He's on huge money, and we've still had to be partially paying that when he's been in Belgium, when he's been in Holland, and I think we're paying a lot of it still while he's in Scotland. So Wolves are still using him, and I just think we cut our losses. It's time to go.
He's been there 4 years and he scored 4 Premier League goals.
He scored goal. As if he scored less goals at Molineux than I have. That's tremendous. What a stat.
I mean, no, it's been an absolute nightmare. But, on the plus side, at least it sorted out Porto's financial problems because they were in a massive black hole. So at least a certain agent, George Mendes, has helped them out there. So that was great business for him.
He owes us big time this summer. He really does. And
you might take him to West Ham then. Might take him to Lopetegui. Do us a favour.
Fabio Silva is not playing Premier League football next season.
My worry with him is I don't see who's going to buy him, and I don't see it. I mean, it's almost we're going to give him away, aren't we, just to get him off the books? Is how it kind of feels. And when you've invested £35 million on a footballer, and signings don't always come off, do they? But there was no basis to buy him in the first place based on what he was achieving. So the signing didn't feel right.
It's a lottery ticket buying a player like that. You buy a 17-year-old for a couple of million, you don't mind that. Like Arenzo, the other Lamina, you throw a couple of million on these lads, who are at decent academies, who've got a bit of spark, a couple of million quid, 3, 4, 5, that's fine. 35 million was obscene. It's an absolute joke throwing away money. So
and also it was at that time when Wolves didn't have it. If you remember, because I remember doing podcasts with Tim Spears about it. And that's when people completely took some comments and said about Aït-Nouri out of context when I was talking about there's a finite amount of money to spend. Where should it be spent? And people thought I was saying that Ryan Giles was better than Aït-Nouri. No, that's not what I said. At the time, Aït-Nouri was the third choice left back. And would that money be better spent on a striker, which Wolves desperately needed? But £35 million went on a kid with one league goal as the only backup to Raul Jimenez, the only backup. And we know what happened with his skull fracture. And therefore, there was zero senior backup, because I don't count an 18-year-old kid with one league goal as senior backup. I don't know if you guys do. So I think that was a big error at the time. And apparently it's what Nuno wanted. But I think for all the great things Nuno did, I think that was an error. And I think Wolves have been like trying to catch up ever since signing, the ironing board, Willian Jose, who never wanted to be there, another one. And the hoops they had to go through.
El Mannequin.
Signed through COVID times, the hoops, the issues with getting him in, never wanted to be there, one goal. And now, Fabio Silva, 4 league goals in 62 appearances. No, absolute shambles. But so I think when they overlooked Gyökeres last season for 20 million or something, that was anyway, let's hope that going forwards, those kind of errors aren't repeated. And I think now that Matt Hobbs is there,
who's done really,
really well, I just hope they back him and his footballing decisions, and then I think the club will be in good shape because he works really well with Gary O'Neill, and I think they're all pretty sensible between them. But hopefully they're all united this summer. Really, hopefully they're all on the same page. Manage to do a few deals to get certain defenders out and certain strikers who were never a good idea in the first place out, and hopefully they can bring in fresh legs.
I'm reaching at a spin here, guys, but for the fact that Wolves have ended the season so badly, it's screaming, you need to do some really good business this summer. Now, it is a reach, but if I'm trying to pull a positive from a woeful end of the season that's been painful, then, there's a massive note there. Look, Jeff, we need your help here. We need this to be a big summer. I'm not expecting a summer like the Jao Moutinho, Raul Jimenez, Johnny Otto, Rui Patricio, ridiculous, the best transfer window ever in Wolves history. An absolute joke, apart from Andy Thompson and Steve Bull, of course. I do apologise, but an absolute joke of a window. We need probably a window that's second behind that. But again, it's about quality, not quantity. We are coming to the end of episode 100. Just a quick thank you to all the new followers, the watches, the comments, the interactions across YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Spotify. We love talking about football. We'll have some great guests on. Jacqui this week, David Kelly. We've had Ewan Roberts, Keith Hackett's been on, Chris Tyler. We couldn't afford Chris and Jacqui the same week, so we had to pick one or the other. So it's been absolutely fantastic. And your likes and your follows and your comments, hopefully we can do one in the summer when we get some business going. We haven't got a game next week to go, a prediction, but I've got another prediction for you instead. It just so happens that Gareth Southgate might not ruin your summer this year. So I'd love to get your take, both of you, on how far England are going to go in the Euros. Nocky, we'll start with you in England going out in the group stage.
Oh, God, he's very dependent on the squad, isn't it? I mean, you would like to think...
Forward line's a joke, mate. Look at it. It's an absolute joke.
You'd like to think he'd look at Bellingham, Foden, Kane and build everything around them is where I'd like to think he goes. I don't think we'll win it because I just don't expect England or Wolves to win anything, do you? I think they'll get to the quarterfinals, maybe a sniff at the semis, but that's probably about as far as I think we'll go.
Love your positivity, Nock. Jacqui?
Well, having watched an England team win the Euros, obviously the women a couple of years ago, I've been infused with positivity that it's actually possible that England can mentally get over the line. Then I think they'll reach the final. And I just hope the decision-making and the availability for the defenders is there, because I think the front line and the attacking midfielders, oh my God, it's unbelievable, the talent that England have at their disposal. It depends on fitness, on availability, on coming back from these ridiculous overseas tours that's killing the players, this summer. That
Can't have FA Cup replays, though. Can't have that.
Spurs have already gone to Australia, haven't they? So I think defensively, that's my concern. So Gareth Southgate's going to have to be super clever with picking the right, pegs in the right holes. But I think England can win it. My 10-year-old son told me this morning, absolutely England are going to win it. He's absolutely adamant. He's mad into his football now. So I think the final, my son Max says we're going to win it. But yeah, I'm pretty positive.
There's no better squad, is there? There's no better squad in the whole competition.
I think France are close. They've got some talent. But when you got to tell, Bukayo Saka, on his day, he's absolutely unplayable. The fact that Cole Palmer's had a season that good, that he's in contention for that position, it is embarrassing. Foden, Bellingham, Kane, who's going to play on the left? I don't mind. Let's fit them all in. I know Gareth won't do it, but if that team for me goes toe-to-toe, blow for blow, or Keegan style, no one's going to outscore that team. I know that's not his mentality, and I'm set up to have my heart breaking on my birthday, which is always the Euros final weekend. But there we go, and I'm going to say England will win it. Matthias Cunha, Wolves 1-0. England are going to win it, and I'm going to keep saying it. This has been episode 100 of the Wolves Report. Thank you so much to our club captain and this week's guest, Jacqui Oatley. She said England are going to win the Euros. She said never to score a penalty. It's happening. England are winning the Euros. Look forward to speaking to the summer of the Wolves.